Someone wrote to us and asked what you could do if the ends of your jeans were frayed. So I've got two suggestions, and you can extend it a bit with a bit of embroidery. One is to make the fray purposeful. So where it is frayed on the very edge, you cut it open a bit more. So I've cut this section open here on this side, and you can see now that there'll be 3 layers of cloth, and that's because you've got the turn up tucked under. So then you take a big fat needle and you gradually work your way down the fabric, and you can try and do all 3 layers at once, pulling out the weft. So the warp is the dark blue, and that's the vertical, and the weft is the one that has the elastane in it in this particular instance, and usually is a pale colour because that's what gives you the denim-y look. So you start to pull out, look here, there's lots of yarns I pulled out already, and then when you've done that, you trim them off just to give you a bit more understanding of where you're at and a few less knots. And you keep on going down. So I'm going to finish this and show you the result. So this side is pretty well finished. You don't go all the way to the top, you need to leave some threads there. And what will happen is, this is a good example, is that you'll find that it doesn't fray evenly, that you end up with a slightly squint, I suppose, weft. So then you have to make it go straightish. So you unpick it until at the point you want to stop unpicking, and then you simply trim the threads off. Let's see if I can illustrate a bit here. So you take it back here, getting rid of the length of threads you want, and these threads will just trim off. And so you go on and on until you get it frayed the length you want. Cotton, when it's cut and you remove some of the weft, tends to open up and the fibres look a little bit like velvet. Look, it's gone quite fluffy. And so if that look plain is not your thing, then you can do some embroidery. So here we are, we secured the thread on the back. I've chosen quite a light coloured embroidery so that I can illustrate to you. I think I would fancy doing a chain stitch on the bottom here. So a chain is when you make a loop and you put a stitch through and catch the loop round the back of your stitch. So do that again. You make a loop, you make an even size stitch, pull it through, and again. Remember, these are just ideas because you're going to be experimenting with your own embellishments here. So I'll do a bit more and show it to you. See, I've made a gap between this stitching line, which will stay, and my embroidery line. So I'll do a bit more and show you that, and then show you another idea. We're getting to the stage on the chain stitch where it's very short, the thread is very short. So you come through one stitch and then take it to the back, so you're completing the stitch. Here we go. Then secure your thread at the back. Actually, I'll do that on the turn up of the cloth because that'll keep it out of the way. 1, 2, that will do. Now I've rethreaded a needle already, so here we go. I shall secure it on the back again in more or less the same place. So 1, 2, and 3. Then I need to go back into the top of the loop. Let's see if I can get there. There we are, back into the top of the loop, and I can start again and then trim. I'll trim at the back. So that's how you carry on with your chain stitch. I'll complete it. We'll look at something else. The next stitch I chose to do as a decorative stitch is a cross stitch. It's a spaced cross stitch. There we are. It's quite difficult to see because the threads are more or less the same colour, but I didn't want it to shout out too much. You could do it in a brighter colour. So I secured it on the back here, came through to the front, and I'm right-handed, so I am going right to left, and then I cross the thread over and down to the right again, and then a big gap so that my stitches are not bang next door to each other. Now, if you're not familiar with doing cross stitch, do go on our website, because we've got basic embroidery, and it is fairly basic, but at least it will teach you the different methods of doing this, and then you can practice before you try to embellish your own special things. So I'm leaving a gap in between, which means it looks a little bit more creative, and it's, I think, a fairly good option. So I'll quickly have a look. There, that's quite nice, isn't it? The final idea, the final suggestion, is possibly if you want to sew some ribbon on. Now, I have this which I rescued from something, this which is vintage. I'm going to demonstrate with the vintage. I'm demonstrating in yellow, and it's not because I think that this is the most perfect ribbon, it's just I want to show you how to do it. So what you do is you choose the inner leg seam. That's usually the one without double stitching. The outer leg usually has double stitching on it. And you lie your ribbon flat, because when you come over the other side, you're going to fold it over the top and neaten it off there. I've secured my thread behind the ribbon. I'm going to come up into this blue bit. Now I'm using yellow because I'm demonstrating. I don't think you'll actually notice it, but I certainly wouldn't want to use blue. You'd never see a thing I'm doing. So I travel down in the jean material and come up into a little bit of the top of the ribbon. In the jean material and come up into the top of the ribbon. Sometimes it can create a little bit of a texture, and that's quite nice. You certainly don't want to pull it too tight, but it should lie flat like this and go all the way around, and that's your ribbon sewing on. How to personalise the bottom of your jeans when they're worn out.